All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving deep into the world of athletic training.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling a topic that's causing some serious waves.
Ooh, I like it.
Entertainment training.
Interesting.
We're looking at an article called Why Entertainment Training Stops You from Being Dominant.
Okay.
It's by Clance Laylor, a master strength coach.
Makes sense.
And let me tell you, he doesn't mince words.
Oh.
He seems to really hate this whole entertainment training thing.
So, what is it exactly?
Yeah, what is it?
And why is Coach Laylor so riled up?
Great questions.
Well, right off the bat, the term entertainment training kind of throws some shade, doesn't it?
It does, almost like it's not real training.
Exactly. It's like it's pitted against serious training.
Okay, so let's break this down.
Sounds good.
What does Coach Laylor actually mean by entertainment training?
He defines it as any exercise that doesn't directly, and I mean directly, help an athlete reach their main training goals. These exercises, they might be fun, part of a team warm-up, whatever.
Yeah.
But Coach Laylor's argument,
What's that?
they're a waste of time.
Oh, I see. Precious training time.
You got it. Time that could be spent on stuff that actually matters.
So it's kind of like scrolling through social media when you should be studying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or binge watching instead of hitting the gym.
We're all guilty of that sometime.
Right. But how does this apply specifically to athletic training?
Yeah, good point. What's he saying athletes should be doing instead?
Coach Laylor, he's a big proponent of what he calls the meat and potatoes of athletic training.
Okay, I like it. Meat and potato.
This is the bedrock, the foundation.
So we're talking serious strength training.
Absolutely. Things like squats, deadlifts.
The heavy stuff.
Yep, and Olympic lifts. Those movements build real power.
No shortcuts.
Nope. He believes those exercises, they need to be the cornerstone of any athlete's program.
It makes sense. You need a strong foundation to build anything.
Exactly. Like you wouldn't build a skyscraper on sand, right?
Disaster waiting to happen.
So, is he saying every single exercise has to be a back-breaking squat or deadlift?
That's what I'm wondering.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But he does have some very specific thoughts about core work.
Ooh, core training. It's everywhere these days.
It really is. And this is where it gets interesting.
Is Coach Laylor saying it's all hype?
He's definitely skeptical.
Yeah.
Especially all that isolated core work,
Yep.
you know, for athletes who are already doing those big lifts.
Yeah.
His argument is that those big foundational lifts, they're already working the core like crazy.
Makes sense.
Spending extra time on isolated core exercises. Kind of pointless.
You're saying it's like building that skyscraper on sand again.
Exactly. Not the smartest approach.
So planks and crunches, not the magic bullet for a strong core.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
He's not totally against all core work.
Rude.
He mentions back extensions are fine, even daily ab work.
So what's the issue with planks?
It's not about planks being bad. It's more about efficiency.
Ah, got it.
He wants athletes to maximize their training time.
Makes sense. Spend it on what really matters.
Right.
But how does an athlete even know what's essential and what's not?
That's where his whole concept of strength standards comes in.
Strength standard.
He basically has this qualification system.
Interesting.
Athletes, they got to hit certain strength levels.
Like benchmarks.
You got it! Before they can even think about adding in what he considers entertainment training.
So it's like dessert before dinner. Got to earn those treats.
That's a great way to put it. You got to earn those extras.
So what kind of strength standards are we talking? Give me an example.
He specifically mentions hockey, soccer, and football players.
Okay, a lot of athletes.
He says to see that optimal transfer to their sport, they got to be able to squat their own body weight.
Wow, their own body weight. That's pretty specific.
He calls it a prerequisite for more speed, agility, explosiveness.
So real performance gains. Is there, like, science behind this? Or is it more from his coaching experience?
It's a bit of both, actually.
Really?
He mentions research from people like Dr. Tim 𝙏𝙚
Okay.
who's studied how back squat strength relates to athletic performance.
Interesting.
But Coach Laylor also emphasizes his own experience, years of it.
In the trenches.
Exactly. Collecting data from beginners all the way up to elite athletes.
So it's a combo of science and what he's seen firsthand.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's the thing that's bugging me.
What's that?
If Coach Laylor's SO against entertainment training, why even allow it at all? He does mention exceptions, right? Mental and political reasons. What's that all about?
That's where the human element of coaching comes into play.
I
It's
see.
not just about the physical training.
It's about the whole athlete.
Exactly. Their motivations, their psychology.
Right.
Coach Laylor, he gets that sometimes those fun exercises.
Yeah.
They might be necessary for an athlete's mental well-being.
Okay, interesting.
Or even, team morale.
So it's like even if broccoli is good for you, you need pizza sometimes too.
Haha. Exactly. Just for your sanity.
But how does this actually play out in training? Any real-world examples?
He actually shares a story about a hockey player.
Okay, let's hear it.
This player was new to his program, really wanted more core and cardio.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
But get this, the guy was, and I quote, tight, weak, and uncoordinated.
Oh, wow. So probably not what he needed to be focusing on.
Right. But Coach Laylor had to consider the player's mindset, too.
Yeah, maybe he needed that routine, that familiarity to feel comfortable.
It's possible, and this shows how coaches have to balance things.
It's a tough job.
It is. They got to guide athletes to their full potential.
Right.
But sometimes that means saying no.
Even if it's not what the athlete wants.
Exactly. Got to focus on what they need.
So it's more nuanced than just saying entertainment training is always bad.
Way more nuanced.
And that leads to another point he makes about a type of core training that really worries him.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He calls it fancy ab-burning core training. Says it's everywhere on social media.
I think I know what he's talking about.
He thinks it's actually making athletes weaker
Weaker.
and more prone to injury.
Seriously?
Yeah, those flashy Instagram workouts. You know, six-pack in minutes.
Oh, yeah, those.
Coach Laylor's convinced those are producing, and again I quote, weaker and injury-prone athletes.
Because they're not focusing on the important stuff.
Exactly. They get distracted from the meat and potatoes.
So he's not just saying they're not efficient. He thinks they're actually harmful.
That's his argument, based on what he's seen over the years.
Wow.
He contrasts those workouts with what he calls real lifts.
Like what?
Squats, pulls, snatches, cleans, overhead pressing. He thinks those build genuine core strength.
The kind that's actually useful.
Exactly. Not just about aesthetics. It's got to be transferable to their sport.
Right, withstanding those forces they encounter.
Makes me think of that quote from his article. He asks his athletes, "What do you think is getting stronger while you were squatting properly?"
Haha, good one. A well-executed squat. A fantastic core workout.
Right. Makes you think twice about those isolated exercises.
It really does.
I'm actually rethinking my own training now. Maybe I'm overthinking all the extras.
It's easy to get caught up in that.
And this brings us to something crucial for everyone listening.
Oh, what's that?
Coach Laylor's focused on athletes,
Right.
but these principles, they apply to everyone.
Everyone. How so?
Whether you're an athlete or not, think about it. Any skill you want to master, any area you want to excel in,
Okay, I'm following.
what are your meat and potatoes, those essential practices, the foundation for your success?
Interesting way to think about it.
We can even think about it in our field, podcasting.
Podcasting, okay.
What are the meat and potatoes skills here?
Let's see. Solid research, clear communication, engaging storytelling.
Exactly, the core elements of a great podcast.
And just like Coach Laylor prioritizes those foundational lifts, we could say focusing on these core skills will get you better results.
Than chasing those flashy trends and gimmicks.
It's about finding those essentials and prioritizing them ruthlessly.
Yet, just like with athletes, there's a balance, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We got to acknowledge the mental and emotional side too.
You can't just grind all the time.
Sometimes a little bit of entertainment training is needed, whether it's a podcasting experiment or a fun workout.
Keeps things fresh, prevents burnout.
It's about finding that sweet spot.
Balance between discipline and enjoyment.
So it's not about being rigid, but being mindful.
Intentional with your time and energy.
In training, in life, in everything.
Coach Laylor's analogy comes back to mind. Dessert before dinner.
You got to earn those rewards.
Makes them even more satisfying.
It's true. That pizza tastes better after a killer workout.
No doubt. But we still have some questions, right?
We do. How do you figure out what your meat and potatoes are? And where does entertainment training fit in?
Yeah, good questions.
We'll unpack all that right after this break.
We're back, and before the break we were talking about entertainment training and how it can actually hold athletes back.
And we asked all of you listening to think about the entertainment training traps in your own lives.
The stuff that might seem fun or cool, but isn't actually helping you reach your full potential.
So easy to fall into those traps.
Yeah, especially these days with all the distractions.
Right, it's like we're always trying to optimize everything.
All those life hacks and quick fixes.
But sometimes it feels like all that optimization just leads to analysis paralysis.
Oh, yeah. You're so busy tweaking and tinkering that you never actually do anything.
And that is a perfect example of entertainment training outside the gym.
It is the seduction of the quick fix, the promise of effortless improvement.
And it pulls us away from the fundamentals.
The less glamorous but essential stuff.
Like Coach Laylor was saying, those flashy, ab-burning core workouts.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that promise a six-pack in minutes.
He thinks those can actually do more harm than good.
Right. He was saying they create the illusion of progress.
But they don't build that underlying strength and stability that really matters.
It's like putting a fancy paint job on a car with a broken engine.
Looks good, but it won't get you very far.
So how can we spot these entertainment training traps in our own lives?
What are the red flags?
One thing that jumps out is that focus on short-term results over long-term growth.
If something promises you quick and easy gains without much effort.
Yeah, like those fad diets.
Exactly. They promise you'll lose weight fast.
But then you just gain it all back.
Yo-yo dieting, all sizzle, no steak.
Another red flag is that over-reliance on external validation.
Oh, yeah. Getting caught up in the numbers.
Likes, followers, all that.
More worried about how something looks on social media than the actual substance.
It's easy to get sucked into that comparison game.
Chasing those dopamine hits from likes and followers.
But those external rewards are so fleeting.
They can distract you from the real satisfaction of mastering a skill.
For its own sake.
Which brings us back to Coach Laylor's point about the meat and potatoes of training.
Those foundational movements.
The squats, deadlifts, Olympic lifts.
The stuff that builds real strength and power.
They might not be trendy or flashy,
but they've stood the test of time for a reason.
They're the building blocks, the foundation.
And I think that applies to any area of life.
What are the meat and potatoes skills for your job, your hobbies, your personal growth?
If you're a writer, it's mastering grammar, syntax, storytelling.
If you're a musician, it's scales, chords, rhythm.
An entrepreneur, market research, financial management, customer service.
Those are the fundamental.
The ingredients that let you create something truly great.
And it's through consistent practice that you achieve mastery.
And lasting fulfillment.
But like we said before, it's not about becoming a robot.
You don't have to only focus on the meat and potatoes.
There's room for experimentation, for trying new things.
For stepping outside your comfort zone.
Coach Laylor even says entertainment training can be beneficial.
For mental well-being, team dynamics.
Sometimes you need a little fun and variety to prevent burnout.
Even the most dedicated athletes need a rest day.
And even the most disciplined writers might benefit from trying a new genre.
It's about being mindful.
Intentional with your time and energy.
Are those extra activities truly serving your long-term goals?
Or are they just distractions?
That's the question we all need to ask ourselves.
I know. I'm looking at my own habits differently now.
Me too. This made me rethink my training.
And I've realized there's some areas where I might have fallen into the entertainment training trap.
It's so easy to get seduced by the latest trends or gadgets.
Thinking they're the key to unlocking some next-level performance.
It's tempting to believe there's a magic shortcut.
But ultimately, the most effective approach is often the simplest.
The most consistent and the most aligned with your goals.
And that applies to so much more than just athletics.
It's a reminder to focus on the fundamentals.
To be patient and persistent.
And to not get distracted by those shiny objects promising quick fixes.
It's about recognizing that the journey itself, the process of mastering a skill, that's where the real rewards lie.
But there's one more piece of this entertainment training puzzle that we haven't fully explored.
Oh, you're right, the political side that Coach Laylor mentions.
What do you think he means by that?
It's interesting how he brings it up because it shows that coaching isn't just about physiology and programming.
There's this whole other layer of human relationships, team dynamics, external pressures.
We touched on this earlier. Remember when a coach might have to include an exercise that's not ideal just to keep everyone happy?
Yeah, to avoid conflict.
Yeah.
But what are some other ways this political dimension shows up in training?
Well, one example Coach Laylor gives is the pressure to conform to trends.
Oh, yeah. Especially with social media these days.
You see those workout videos on Instagram and TikTok.
And it makes you feel like you're falling behind if you're not doing the same thing.
Exactly like those burning routines we talked about.
They might look cool, but they're not necessarily effective.
And that's where the political side comes in.
Because athletes might feel pressure to do those trendy exercises.
Even if it's not the best thing for them.
So it's like FOMO, fear of missing out, but in the fitness world.
It can lead athletes down the wrong path.
And that's why it's so important to think critically.
Both for athletes and coaches.
You got to be able to evaluate those trends objectively.
Separate the hype from the substance.
And make decisions based on what actually works.
Not just what's popular.
And that's where Coach Laylor's strength standards are so helpful.
It gives athletes a way to track their progress.
And make informed decisions.
Instead of just chasing fads.
He's basically saying, look, these are the benchmarks. If you want to do the extra stuff, you got to hit these standards first.
It takes the emotion out of it.
And creates a more objective approach.
But it also puts a lot of responsibility on the coach.
They need to be able to communicate those standards clearly.
And create a supportive environment.
Which brings us back to building trust with your athletes.
Creating a space for open communication.
Where athletes feel comfortable asking questions and voicing concerns.
Because at the end of the day, it's a partnership.
The coach is the expert, but the athlete has to put in the work.
And that's more likely to happen when there's mutual respect.
I think that's a key takeaway from all of this.
It's about moving beyond those simplistic ideas about entertainment training.
And recognizing the complexity of creating a truly effective training program.
It's about understanding the why behind the what.
The science, the psychology, the dynamics.
And it's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
What works for one person might not work for another.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with this thought.
The next time you're evaluating a new training program or even just a fitness trend, don't just take it at face value.
Dig deeper. Ask those why questions.
And think about what Coach Laylor said, the importance of those foundational exercises.
The meat and potatoes.
Don't get distracted by the flashy stuff, the entertainment training.
Prioritize the fundamentals. Build a solid foundation.
And you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Keep challenging yourself, keep learning, and keep striving for that next level.
Okay, so we've been really digging into Coach Laylor's philosophy.
Yeah, his strong stance against entertainment training.
He's all about prioritizing those foundational exercises.
Those meat and potatoes.
Before even thinking about the extras.
But he also brings up this whole other side of things, the political aspect of training.
That's what we're going to focus on now.
It's really interesting how he brings that in.
Because it shows that coaching isn't just about physiology and exercise science.
Right, there's this whole human element.
Relationships, team dynamics, even outside pressures.
We talked about one example earlier.
When a coach might have to include an exercise that's not ideal just to avoid conflict.
Yeah, or to keep things harmonious on the team.
But I'm curious, what are some other ways this political side of training shows up in the real world?
Well, one thing Coach Laylor talks about is the pressure to conform to certain training trends.
Yeah, and with social media these days.
It's everywhere. You see all these flashy workout videos.
On Instagram, TikTok, and it creates this feeling like if you're not doing those things,
you're somehow missing out.
Like you're not part of the in crowd.
Exactly. It's like those burning routines we talked about.
They might look impressive on camera,
but they're not necessarily the most effective for building real core strength.
And that's where the political side comes in.
Because athletes might feel pressure from their teammates.
Or even their parents.
To do those trendy exercises.
Even if it's not the best thing for their individual development.
So it's kind of like FOMO, fear of missing out.
But in the fitness world.
And it can be really detrimental.
It can lead athletes down a path that's not right for them.
And that's why critical thinking is so important.
Not just for athletes, but for coaches too.
You got to be able to cut through the hype.
Separate what's popular from what actually works.
And make decisions based on sound principles.
Not just what looks cool on social media.
And that's one reason why I think Coach Laylor's emphasis on strength standards is so valuable.
Those clear benchmarks.
They give athletes a way to assess their own progress objectively.
And make more informed decisions about their training.
Instead of just blindly following the latest fad.
It's like he's saying, look, these are the standards. If you want to do the fun stuff, you got to earn it.
It takes the emotion out of it.
And focuses on concrete results.
But it also puts a lot of responsibility on the coach.
They need to be able to explain those standards clearly.
And create a training environment that supports athletes in reaching them.
Which brings us back to that idea of building trust and rapport.
Creating a space where athletes feel comfortable asking questions.
And voicing their concerns.
Because ultimately it's a partnership.
The coach is the expert, but the athlete has to put in the work.
And that's more likely to happen when there's mutual respect and understanding.
I think that's a really important takeaway from this whole conversation.
We've got to move beyond these simplistic ideas about entertainment training.
And recognize how much nuance there is in creating a truly effective training program.
It's not just about do this, don't do that.
It's about understanding the reasons behind those choices.
The science, the psychology, the dynamics.
And it's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
What works for one person might not work for another.
And what might be considered entertainment training for one athlete.
It could be a crucial part of another athlete's development.
It all depends on their individual needs and goals.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
The next time you're evaluating a new training program or even just a fitness trend,
Don't just accept it at face value.
dig a little deeper.
Ask those why questions.
Think about what Coach Laylor emphasized.
The importance of those foundational exercises. The meat and potatoes.
Don't get seduced by the flashy stuff, the entertainment training that might not actually be moving you forward.
Focus on building that solid foundation.
And remember,
It's about the journey.
the consistent effort, the dedication to mastering your craft.
That's where the real rewards lie.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of athletic training.
We'll see you next time.